Hi, I'm Wanda from Alanda Craft, and today I'm going to show you how to cut triangles using a straight ruler, using a triangle ruler, and also using the 60-degree line on your mat. I'm also, at the end of this tutorial, going to show you how to sew them together. So let's get started. So I want 6-inch triangles for my project, so I've cut my fabric into 6 inches in width, and I've removed the selvages, and I have the selvages on my left hand side and I have the fold on my right hand side. So what we're going to do now is take our ruler, and you can see here that I've put a piece of tape on the 60-degree mark just to make it easier for me to find, and I have the pointy piece where all of the lines meet facing to my right, and where the 60-degree line flares out, I have that on my going towards my left. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the ruler around so that the 60-degree line lays along the edge, and I'm going to just move that out until it lines up with this point at the top. So just get everything nicely lined up. So you can see here I have the 60-degree line and my point is all on the edge of my fabric, and my ruler is at the point here. Now if I cut at this point, I'm going to end up with 2 pieces of scrap here, but if I want to have these pieces where I can use them in my project so they will make 2 triangles, I need to move it over a little bit, and I actually line this up with the 1/4 inch line. So that's going to give me a 1/4 inch seam line, and I can then use those pieces of fabric in my project or in another project. So just make sure that everything is lined up nicely. There we go, so 60-degree line, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're ready to cut. Now there we go, and we have 2 bits that we can still use. Just put those aside. Now I'm just going to take the ruler and move it so that the 60-degree line now goes along my cut line. I still have my point on the edge of the fabric, and just make sure that that line is nicely lined up along my cut line. And then I'm going to cut once again. There you are, I have my 2 triangles. And then to do the next one, we just come along and line ourselves up again. This time we want it to go to the point because we're not having to add a seam allowance. Okay, so we're on our line to point, all lined up nice and neat along the edge and coming out at the point. And we'll just cut that. And that's how you cut triangles using your ruler. So now I'm going to show you how to cut triangles using a triangle ruler. I'm using a So Easy 60-degree triangle, and what I like about this is it has the centre of your triangle marked here, so there's a centre line, and it also has the 1/4 inch mark on either side of that centre line. So that's your seam allowance. So I really like this ruler. Now I want 6-inch triangles for my project, so I've cut my fabric at 6 inches in width. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the excess at the end here to start with. So I line up my ruler on the 6-inch mark, and I have the point at the other end. Now if you don't care about those scraps, you can throw them away. That's what you'll do. You'll just line it straight through at the point and bring it and come straight through there when you cut. But however, if you wish to use those pieces in your project, you'll need to add a seam allowance. So we just move it over to the 1/4 inch. So I've got the 1/4 inch line there, and we're going to cut like that. So I'm on my 6-inch mark, got my point at the edge, got a little flap here, but I'll show you what I'll do with that in a moment. So I'm going to make my cut, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that little flap off. Okay, so there you are, you have 2 triangles with the seam allowance, half triangles that you can use. So I'll just pop those aside. Now what I'm just going to do is flip my ruler. Again, line it up on the 6-inch line, and my point comes to the point here. 6-inch line, Yep, okay, so we're down the edge of where our cut was. We've got our 6-inch mark along the edge, and we've got our point up here. And again, we're just going to cut. Oops. Sometimes happens, we all have little mishaps. Okay, that's those triangles. And now flip the ruler around again. I find this easier than flipping the fabric. I think it's a much quicker way of doing things. Again, we're going to line up along the edge of our triangle. We've got our point at the edge there and our 6 inches along here. And cut. See how quick and easy this is, and we're doing 2 at a time, so it's going to be done in no time at all. Let's do one more. Line it up. Down the edge of our cut, on the edge of our fabric, point at the end here. And cut. There we are. 6 triangles cut and 2 halves in no time at all. So now I'm going to show you how to cut triangles without any fancy rulers, simply with your mat. So I need 6-inch triangles for my project, so I have my width of fabric here cut at 6 inches. I've taken the salvages off, and I have the open end, the formerly salvage end, facing to the left. I have the fold facing to the right. So what I need to do is just find the 60-degree line on the mat, and you'll see that it converges down here with the 30-degree, but that's the one we're going to be working with, 60-degree. So we're just going to line our fabric up on the bottom line here and into the corner and along the edge. So our edges are lined up. We're in the corner. Okay. Now we take a ruler. I'm using a quilter's slide lock, and you put it to the end, to that corner where the lines meet, and go along. Put it along the 60-degree line there. Now you can just go ahead and cut that, but what that'll do is it'll give you 2 pieces that you will just have for scrap, so you can't use those. So if you do want to use those as a half triangle or half a triangle, you simply move it along and leave a 1/4 inch seam. So now when I line up, I have a 1/4 inch that sort of goes in under the ruler, and you'll be able to use that in your project. So again, we're all lined up, we're on the 60-degree line, and we're ready to cut. So there we go, we've got our first cut, and those, we'll be able to use those. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to take my fabric and turn it over and line it up with the corner, and again along the edge. Take my ruler. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, line it up from the corner along the 60-degree edge and cut. Again, turn the fabric towards you. Take the top point to the corner. Place your ruler along the 60-degree line and cut. And that's all you need to do. So you don't need a fancy ruler, you can just use your mat. So now that we've cut our triangles, I'm going to show you how to sew them together. Now, one thing you need to know about triangles is when you cut them, you'll find that they have a bias cut on 2 sides, and that means that it's stretchy. So if you pull the side, you can see how it stretches, and the same with the other side. But the bottom piece doesn't stretch much at all. That's the cross grain piece, and that's the piece that you want to have at the edge of your project. So I usually put mine into piles, put my triangles into piles and clip them together so that on the cross grain side, so I know exactly which side needs to go to the edge. So now that we've cut our triangles, we need to sew them together. So the first thing we're going to do is lay them out on our mat, and what you need to just look for here is that you have the non-stretchy part. Remember we talked about that before, so just give it a pull and you can see that there's no give in that. So that goes to the edge, to the outside edge, and the same with this piece goes to the outside edge. So all your triangles along here will have the non-stretchy piece facing to the edge. Now the same will happen on this side. You can see here, this is non-stretchy, so that's a cross grain piece, and that comes here, and all these pieces you will have the cross grain piece facing out towards the edge. Now we're going to sew down our bias strips, and those are the stretchy bits. So we just make sure, we've already checked it, but we put our stretchy bits together and we sew down there with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, and that will give us a piece that looks like this. Now don't cut your dog ears off at this stage, because these will help you to align your next triangle. So take your triangle and just lay it on top. Again, these are the stretchy bits. We just sew with a 1/4 inch seam, and then we'll end up with a piece like this. Now you can keep going like this. You'll just keep adding triangles, and you'll make a strip of fabric as long as you want it to be. And the same, you can make a full quilt with just rows and rows of triangles, and that'll look really effective. Now we have an upcoming tutorial where we put together some triangles to make this table runner. So what we've done is we've done 2 rows of triangles, and then we've just sewn them together and added some borders. So we'll put a link for this tutorial in the description below once it goes up onto YouTube. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and the full written instructions will be over on our website, so head over there. That's alandacraft.com, and there'll be a link in the description below.